Hey everyone, this is False Mind But Books here, and I'm here to walk you through my reading journey so far. Because I think that's the perfect introduction to this channel, is to walk you through my reading journey. I have to grab something real quick. So yeah, I'm going to be walking you through my reading journey. Basically, I want to start this channel because I love reading. I've loved it for, wow, a long time now. And I say that having feeling like I pretty recently got into reading, but really it's been a long time. So, without further ado, let us get into it. So, in my childhood, my mom used to read me books, and the specific books that she would read me, a lot of them have been lost to time and such, but I still hold the first four books in one series that she used to read to me. And I read this not recently, but like when I was first getting back into reading, and this was around 2017. So I am 20 at the end of this month, at the end of October 2023. So this was probably close to 15 years ago now, but it is the these books. I don't know what series they're called. What is it? I don't know. Anyways, it is The Fire Within by Chris DeLacy. And it's this series. I don't know, the Last Dragon series, I think it's called. And this first book is very interesting because it kind of sucks ass. Um, not to give a review, but like this is I think it's on the lower end of middle grade, maybe like more elementary school, like elementary grade, like perfect for like grade 3 probably. It is light fantasy, I guess. It involves these clay dragons. My mom read these first four books to me as a child, and I'm not going to say it's the thing that sparked my love for reading, because it is not the thing that sparked my love for reading, but it is definitely something that heavily influenced me into getting into reading later in life. And you're gonna see a theme in how I read and what I read, and this has definitely helped that theme. Now there's gonna be probably a very jarring jump as to what I read. I didn't like reading all throughout middle school. Basically, I hated it mostly because I had French immersion. I was in French immersion, so I had to read a lot in French, and I didn't get to read a lot in English at all. And the things we did have to read in English or the things I did have to read in English were for English class, and that is bad. I can't even remember, but I remember it was this book about, they were underwater, and it was kind of like a western but underwater. I really wish I remember what it was called, because I would read it today and I would review it and I'd be like, this is the book I did not like when I was in middle school. And the next time I really read was in grade 9, because let me tell you a story. In grade 9, in grade 8, we had choice between two high schools. That's how our school district worked, is because the high school that my middle school was linked to moved way out of town to like the edge of town. We got the choice, and I happened to live 5 minutes away from the secondary choice. So the choice that all of my friends and everyone I knew chose, I didn't choose. It was me, and because I was in French immersion, there was English track kids, and we knew them, but not that well. And those English track kids, yeah, it was me and one other guy that I barely knew that went to this school. So I was quiet. At this point, I had been suffering from undiagnosed ADHD for all my life, and it was killing my motivation for school, just, getting to know me a little. And so at this point, I had watched Lord of the Rings and probably the Hobbit trilogy, and I loved fantasy and D&D, and D&D, because I got into Dungeons and Dragons after middle school to keep in touch with my best friend from middle school. And that's how I got into this. At this time, it's 2017, right? So Game of Thrones still really big. So the next book I read, I went from reading getting read middle grade to reading Game of Thrones. I shit you not, I cut my teeth on this shit. This 800-page book, 800-page mass market paperback. I read this. I read A Clash of Kings. I even have my copies from back then. Clash of Kings. I read A Storm of Swords. And then I had to take a break. And when I got back from the break, I read A Feast for Crows. So this took me probably until my 10th grade year. I was probably in 10th grade around this time. And I finished Feast for Crows. And I had no motivation to read anymore. I didn't want to read any more books. At least in the Game of Thrones. I didn't want to read Dance of Dragons at all. It was just, to me, it wasn't it. And it was probably around this time that I'm going to use this as a representation. This is volume 1 of Barrage. But it was really MHA that got me into it, because I watched the MHA anime, and I'd always been an anime fan. There's another fantasy thing that you'll see. But I'd always been an anime fan, and I finally, with the MHA manga, and it's MHA and Black Clover. Black Clover because the anime was so ass. I did not like the voice actor in the first episode, and I just couldn't get over it. And MHA because I had watched all the MHA anime, and I wanted to catch up so bad because I wanted just more of this story. So that's how I got into manga, and so over there, all those stacks back there, that's all manga. That's not even half my collection. That's like a very small portion of my manga collection. I love manga. My primary channel, which I don't really upload to anymore because I've lost my passion for talking about manga. I still love manga and I still read it, but I lost my passion for it. So Barrage is just kind of here as a just kind of placeholder for MHA, and so this is the time I started reading manga. I started collecting it. Yeah. The next book, this is about when I started to try and read The Hobbit. I was in high school. It was a book club book, and I did not get to read it. Instead, what I was forced to read, these are the only 2 books I read for high school, and I still own them. I read Enclave by Anna Guire and Mosquito Land by David Arnold. So this is kind of post-apocalyptic fiction. It is in the vein of It's in the vein of Hunger Games, and it's not very good. I knew this was not very good. One thing I forgot to mention is that in middle school, I also had a big phase where I was a Walking Dead super fan. I read the comics, I watched the TV show, loved The Walking Dead. And so I was the apocalypse story guy. I loved zombie apocalypse stories. Well, I love The Walking Dead. So everyone saw me as the zombie apocalypse guy. I was just obsessed with it. Yeah, and I read this and I was like, this is ass. This is ass. So this is not good. And then I read this, Mosquito Land, and I hate present tense. So this was pretty brutal to get through. I did read these, though. I read them all the way through. These are the only books I did read for high school that I was supposed to. Whoopsies. Anyhow, I still own them. I'm thinking I might do a vlog, because I do have the other books I was supposed to read in high school. I'm thinking I might do a vlog of rereading the stuff I was supposed to read in high school and didn't read, and also the stuff I did read and didn't like. But I think that would be a really good vlog idea, or like a review. And during this time, I'm just gonna hold this up. In here, in the Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury, There Will Come Soft Rains. I shared this story with my best friend, and we both enjoyed it. We both read it. It's marvelous idea. And also for I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, I also read this or researched this. I don't know if I've actually read this, but I've definitely researched this around that time. So these two also shaped my love for more apocalyptic, more speculative apocalyptic fiction. And so this is more in between Game of Thrones and now. So right after Game of Thrones, I got really big into, not right after, but like probably around grade 10, end of grade 10, grade 11, I got into the Percy Jackson series. I was late to the party, but I still thoroughly enjoyed this. I've read this series, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, twice, and I own just beyond the camera's reach. I own the whole series. I own the Lost Hero, like the Heroes of Olympus series, and I own all of the Trials of Apollo series. And I've read everything except the Tower of Nero, because what happened was I read the Trials of Apollo when book 3 had just come out. So I bought book 3 hardcover, and then a year later the Tyrant's Tomb came out, so I reread those 3 books, and then the Tower of Nero had come out, so I reread those 4 books, and by the time I reached the 5th, the momentum had died in me. So I did not finish the Tower of Nero. I want to read that, but honestly, I've gotten a lot better at not feeling like I need to reread or rewatch every single season before the new one comes out. So I'm probably just going to pick up the Tower of Nero. Maybe I'll reread the Tyrant's Tomb, but I don't know. So yeah, Percy Jackson is one of those series for me that was very developmental in my love for reading, because if Game of Thrones showed me that books could be amazing, Percy Jackson really cemented that it didn't need to be that long. But it's a 15-book series, so, I mean, what do I know? I've read 14 of the... Well, technically it's 16 books now, because of Chalice of the Gods. I do want to read that, but I need to finish Tower of Nero first. Yeah. So, and then the next series I got into was Dune by Frank Herbert. I am on book 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm on book 5. I'm on Heretics of Dune right now. But Dune, I love Dune. It's so amazing. By the end of this tome, you feel like this world so well. It's not even the characters. Like, Paul, Jessica, you know all these characters, but it's the world. Frank Herbert's world building is amazing. This book, well, I wouldn't say it's amazing. I wouldn't say it's like the best thing I've ever read, but it's one of the things I most enjoyed. I would highly recommend this to anyone who is a fan of sci-fi or fantasy. It's just so nice. He builds this amazing world, and you understand it. Like the world building in this, literally the world building, influenced my writing. By the way, I write on the side. So this and Game of Thrones are the 2 most influential stuff on my things on my writing so far. And I can feel another one edging in, but we'll get to that. So the next thing I read was Dune. And I've read 4 books in that series so far. And then I discovered reading once again. It's like, so how my brain works, right, is it goes in cycles. So at one point I'll have a video gaming cycle, so that's where I'll play all the single player games. I might get into voice chats with my friends and play multiplayer games. And then I go to shows, and then I get into one show, and then I watch it until I'm burnt out, and then I get on to movies, and then I watch a bunch of movies until I'm burnt out, and then I get on to music, and then I get on to books. So I have this big cycle, and right now I'm on the books phase. So next time this cycle came around, the next thing I read was Neuromancer by William Gibson, and this book is so interesting. I love Neuromancer. It's probably my favorite book I've ever read, in a completely subjective sense. Complete subjectivity. I love this book so much. And it took me until I actually marked down the page, because it's my favorite, probably my favorite chapter out of everything. It took me until page 233. Where is that in the book? So it took me until chapter 20. So literally this much left of the book until I finally understood and loved this. I was reading it and I was like, this is okay. It's awesome. I like cyberpunk as a genre. I'm not really big on like cyberpunk 2077 cyberpunk, like the game. But I love cyberpunk as a genre. It's always fascinated me, just the tactile nature of it. And this just cemented it for me. I love this book so much. Neuromancer, when you meet Wintermute and Neuromancer, it's changed my view of not only AI, but like how I want to live my life. It's so good. And when you finally understand this story, when you finally get to chapter 20, it is beyond amazing. I'm telling you right now. Not everyone's going to feel this way. This is completely me and my personal subjectivity. I'm not saying to run out and buy this book and it'll change your life. But what I'm saying is that if you want, you can give this a read, and it's really good. And I actually ended up reading the entire trilogy, the Sprawl trilogy by William Gibson. And I own Burning Chrome. I've read Johnny Mnemonic and a bunch of the other short stories, but I haven't finished the book. I'm about halfway through. I'm probably just going to pick up New Rose Hotel and Burning Chrome itself, and then I don't know about the other short stories, but I do have it with me. I will own it because it's part of the series technically. And William Gibson, man, he's my favorite author. Right now, I love William Gibson. I don't think the two next books are as good as this one particularly, but not for any reasons of like plotting or anything. It's mostly because in this book we follow one protagonist, and it works so well because it's a very small book. Like, you know, compared to the stuff I cut my teeth on, like Game of Thrones, 800 pages. This 800 pages. Other books I've read, like I continue to read nowadays, this is a small book, and it does a lot in those pages. It explores a lot of themes, a lot of ideas, and I just love it for that. So Neuromancer, William Gibson, my favorite book ever so far, and I've read the entire trilogy by him, and I am moving on to, I think I'm going to start Blue Ant soon. My goal, I own the first book in Blue Ant, and I own The Difference Engine with him and Bruce Sterling. I really, really want to read those next, soon. And then, finally, I read The Hobbit. I finally got into it. I tried once again to get into The Hobbit. This is a copy I thrifted. It has a little bit of water damage, but I have owned this for probably longer than most of the books. This was early on in my collecting of books, and I tried to get into it 3 times. As I said, once in high school it was for a book club. I think it was grade 9. Oh, so that would have been around the time of Game of Thrones. I tried to get into this. I couldn't. I literally couldn't. I was 5th period, was the only class, and no one else. I was the only person who wanted to read The Hobbit. And I tried to get into it another time. And the thing is with The Hobbit is I've read it fully now, and I can see exactly why I had a hard time getting into it. And having now finished it, I think it's amazing. I love The Hobbit, actually. I love it. I understand why the movies are so lackluster, because this is such a tight narrative. Like, it does exactly what it needs to, and some stuff could be cut, but I don't think it should be, because that's the fun of it, is that it's such an adventure. And I like The Hobbit. I love it. I love The Hobbit. It holds a nice, warm, fuzzy, cozy place in my heart. And now that brings us up to the present. The present. Right now, what am I reading? I am reading Malazan, Book of the Fallen by Stephen Erickson. This is just the first book in the series, Gardens of the Moon. It's representative. Right now, here actually, I'll move my headphones. Right now, I am on House of Chains, Book 4. I'm like 200 pages out from finishing this one. But Malazan, Book of the Fallen, so far, is amazing. And I want to do reviews of these while they're fresh in my mind. I've been reading these since about August, late August, and it is amazing, incredible books, and I'm so happy to be a reader. Now, one thing I do want to share with you, because this video is kind of in a style of like get to know me and get to know my reading tastes and what you can expect for me to be reading in these coming. I don't know how much time this channel will last, but in the channel you're going to watch, what do you expect me to be reading? What should you expect? Well, definitely going to get into The Cosmere by Brandon Sanderson. I cannot wait to get into I cannot wait to read Mistborn, this copy of Mistborn, because I've never read a Brandon Sanderson book, and that's great. I'm so glad I didn't thus far. I'm so glad my reading journey has brought me there when I'm ready to start this channel, because I will definitely be cataloging my first reactions with Sanderson. I have this. I have all of the Stormlight Archive books in physical, and I have the Cosmere reading order written down here, and I have most of the books. The only books I'm missing right now are Warbreaker and the Wax and Wane series, and I just cannot wait. And all the secret projects, so Tress, Yumi, and Sunlit Man. I am missing those, and I don't want to read Frugal Wizard's Guide to Surviving Medieval England because I'm not into Brandon Sanderson yet. I'm into the Cosmere. I'm vested in the idea of the Cosmere, not into Sanderson himself. So there's that. I want to read Brandon Sanderson. I want to read the Cosmere. And I also want to read Lord of the Rings. Now, Lord of the Rings, I read The Hobbit, and then I jumped into Malazan. But after Malazan is definitely going to be Lord of the Rings time, if I don't take a brief pit stop into either a classic or a sci-fi. But my next fantasy series is going to be Lord of the Rings. I'm so excited to read this. I know it's going to be a challenge because it's classic and it is not written like modern stories, and I'm excited for the challenge. It is so thrilling to be able to experience a story that so many people hold so dear, and I haven't watched these movies. I own a box set, a Blu-ray box set that was gifted to me one Christmas. I don't remember how long ago now, but to be able to experience the original material is going to be so special. Next up is, I'm going to get both of them out right now, but after that is going to be Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, and the thing with this is I know it's unfinished, but I'm a Game of Thrones fan. I'm waiting, but I don't care if it's never finished. The way people talk about this book is incredible, and I want to experience that. I want to be someone who talks about this book as fondly as other people do. So I bought this nice edition of, well, I say nice, it's got this thing, but I bought this edition of Name of the Wind very recently, and it's my plan after Fellowship of the Ring. The next fantasy I'm going to read is Name of the Wind, and then hopefully The Wise Man's Fear. And then after that, I have this copy of The Lies of Loch Lamora. I've heard this name, I swear, and then I recently found out what it was and what it's kind of about, and I am kind of really excited. I only want, like, usually with series, I jump headfirst into them, I get immersed, that's how I consume series. Like Malazan, I bought the first 4 books, I read the first 2, and then I had to have the rest of the series. But with The Lies of Loch Lamora, I know that the books, like, it's sold as like, oh, the first one is a masterpiece, and the second one is good, but not a masterpiece, and the third one is not as good as the second one, but still, like, top tier fantasy. Well, I only want to read Lies of Loch Lamora. It's one of those things where I definitely would like to read under Red Seas Under Red Skies sometime, but if I don't get to it, I'm not going to be too perturbed about it, honestly. But I definitely, like, Lies of Loch Lamora is something I want to read before I die type thing. And then, what is my next goal? Well, it's up here. What is it? What is my next goal? Do you have a guess? Well, did you guess The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan? So this is a nice copy of The Eye of the World that I got from a secondhand bookstore. It is very beautiful. I love this cover. It is definitely one of my favorite covers. I used to look at these types of covers and be like, and now I look at it and I'm like, this is amazing. This art, it's so good. And I tried to actually read this. I read 40 pages into it. It was slow. It wasn't what I was feeling at the time, but I'm so willing to give this a chance. I am so excited. Like, the thing with fantasy series is the way people talk about them, the way the fans talk about them, they are so invested in these things. And I know exactly what it's like to be a fan who's invested in things. With stuff like Malazan and Game of Thrones, I am invested. I am the guy sitting there like, you have to read this. You have to at least give it a shot. It's so good. And with series like Mistborn and Stormlight Archive and Wheel of Time, and Lord of the Rings and Name of the Wind and Lies of Locke Lamora and like all those, I want to be that guy. And so I want to document what I am doing on this channel. So that is the future section of this video. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate you watching this video, guys. And I just want to thank you for, if you continue to watch this channel, thank you. And I will see you in the next video.